Jacob and I had an interesting question that came up on the last podcast, Morgan, and I want to know your opinion about it. It was my opinion that the Texans were the best defense that we had faced. I don't think Jacob was as sure. What are your thoughts about the defense that we faced? Do you think it was the best the Lions have faced this year, or would you pick someone else?
So me and Miko Scott, my colleague at POD, we were talking about that on our YouTube video. I would say yes. I would not. I know everyone's really high on Minnesota right now, and it's a good defense. It's a well coached defense under Brian Flores. They fly around. They do a lot of interesting things. But man, like Houston is the best pass rush unit in football by a couple of different metrics. And to me, that's what really can throw a wrench, obviously into a game plan, right? Like as we saw with the Lions. So, and imagine if they get Will Anderson back, because Daniil Hunter's still a problem. We saw that, right? Like he beat Penei Sewell clean, which happens like once in like every 7 blue moons, right? Like it never happens. Yeah, it's just they're tough to tough matchup to deal with. And Petrie was playing out of his mind. He was making me mad, man. He was causing all kinds of problems off the edge there. So I think they're right there with, like, I would understand if people want to argue Minnesota. It's a really good unit. But in my opinion, Houston has more impact players, whereas Minnesota is playing like a really cohesive, well coached, just defense. Whereas I feel like Houston's got some dudes, man. You look at up and down that Derek Stingley, Petrie, like we talked about. It's a good team. But I feel Jake. Who would you say, Jacob?
It said the Vikings. I thought the Vikings were tougher. I mean, it was hard because it was right after the game and you got the whole 5 interception thing and everything like that. But yeah, I still thought the Vikings, the Vikings didn't have their green dot linebacker when we played them either. So,
good point.
Based on how the games went, obviously it looked like the Texans were much better defense. But I still think that Minnesota is better.
I just think that they might be my question, I guess, is more directed to which is the better defense against the Lions, and I really think that the Texans match up better against the Lions. It seems like the experience on the offensive line for the Lions doesn't get as rattled with the Brian Flores throwing everybody up at the line of scrimmage. They could diagnose that pretty well, and they can limit the pressure. Because I mean, we talked about it after the Vikings game. They put another 30 on Flores, and at that time, Flores had only given up 4 30-point games, and the Lions were 3 of them. So I just feel like, against another team or inexperienced offensive line or inexperienced quarterback, Brian Flores is probably, that's a tough defense just because, like you said, they play so well. They do play as a team, and you just don't know who's gonna rush. Whereas I thought the Texans linebackers really made the difference in the run game. They were flying up to the ball, and it wasn't until the end where Ben Johnson started throwing some misdirection in there, and their keys were off, and they were running gaps that we weren't running towards, and Gibbs would run to the outside and get to the outside of Montgomery too. So I sometimes I think it's just a matchup issue, and that's why I think the Texans come in and we didn't even face them with, like you said, Will Anderson, who might be their best pass rusher. So well,
right.
It'd be interesting if you play that game again. I mean, we also didn't have Decker too, right? I mean, we didn't have our left tackle, and we had Skipper over there who
doing his best, but that's tough to ask Dan Skipper to block Daniil Hunter, man. That's a tough ask. But yeah, Al Shazier, I hope I'm saying his name right. He was playing out of his dang mind. Like you said, I do feel you there, Jason. Like they do match up well because you got Petrie for Saint, you got Stingley for JMO, and so on and so forth. So, and it's a D'Amico Ryan. Like that very much feels like a D'Amico Ryan's coach defense. Like it makes me think of those San Francisco defenses when they all coach there and everything. And yeah, them dudes fly around. I'll give them that. I wouldn't be, opposed to the Minnesota argument either, especially if they got their Mike back and Flores. He got them playing too for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing that the Texans got is they could get pressure with just 4, and when you could do that, and then you drop you drop 7 back, that's your best case scenario against the Lions. I mean, the Lions could attack you in so many different ways. So I mean, to beat them, you're gonna have to rattle Goff with 4 because you start sending blitzes. Goff knows exactly where to go with the ball. He's going to get it out in a timely fashion. So I think that if you could you have to be able to do that to have any chance against this offense.
Yeah, totally agree.